You've heard me say it for years that more information doesn't drive sales. So the question is, well, what does? We all know that decisions to buy are not logically made. They're usually made subconsciously before someone even consciously makes the decision. So the question now becomes, because that's been proven, well, what causes people to make those automatic decisions subconsciously? And it's all about the hooks. It's all about the language and the communication that drives people into action. And that's exactly what we're talking about in this episode here. 4 different hooks that you can start to use to move your audience into action, no matter where you are in your business, in your funnel, ads, emails, whatever. These 4 hooks will drive people into action every single time you use them when done correctly. So if that's interesting to you, well, keep on listening.
Hi, I'm Brandon Lucero, and you're about to experience the new way to thrive in business, entrepreneurship, and life by leaning into who you are, what you love, and standing up for what you want to create. Get ready, because this is where we go against the grain, say no to outdated society norms, and we say yes to change in order to create a happier, more fulfilled world. Welcome to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about the invisible hooks that move your audience into action. This is probably, I don't know why I've never talked about these things before in this way, but I do think that one of the biggest problems that people have when it comes to driving conversions is that they don't know how to drive action. You don't know how to take something and present it in a way that allows people to take action, to click on things, to buy things, to engage and to share. And what we have to realize is that when we want to drive someone into action, it doesn't come down to logic. It doesn't come down to this makes sense. And in fact, the more I live my life, the more I live as an almost 42-year-old man on this planet, and my experience with humans is that it's very rare when decisions are made with logic. Most decisions are actually made with emotions. And we all know this when it comes to like buying decisions. Like we've heard that a million times. Like buying decisions happen. They're made subconsciously and emotionally before the person even thinks about it logically. We all know that. The science has been around for a long time to prove that. Shouldn't be a surprise to you. We've all heard that a million times. But I don't think enough people talk about that. Things like shares and comments and DMs and engaging and watching are also emotionally made decisions. People don't understand that. And the more that you understand how people are making decisions, that the more you understand that it's automatic, that it's emotionally based, for the most part, that's when we start to move the needle on a lot of things. And it can completely alter and change the way that you, teach. It can completely alter the way you write. It could totally alter the type of content that you do. And once I started to realize this, and you started to realize like what actually moves the needle, what do people respond to? What is their subconscious on alert for? Then we can start to figure out, okay, well, these are the elements and these are the teachings. How do we blend these two together? How do we blend together and sell people on the idea that our teachings, our philosophy, our stuff is the best, the right way? And we have to first understand that those decisions to engage, they're not logical. They're not logic-based decisions. They're emotionally based decisions. So these hooks that pull our audience into action are actually things in language and communication that speak to their deep emotions, their fears, their desires. It's getting them to help move them into different levels of awareness. These are the types of hooks and angles and teachings and styles of communication that we need. And so what I wanted to do is go through 4 different hooks that you can start to use inside of your content. It doesn't matter what it is, like content, emails, ads, whatever, that are going to drive people into action. And so again, you know me, I go against the grain from time to time, right? And I do think that this idea that if you guys just give your best stuff away for free, that you continue to teach more and more education, give your best, it doesn't work. If you give your best stuff away for free, it just does not work, especially in today's day and age, because people aren't buying the information. People are not buying information. Like they're not sitting there saying like, oh, I just need just need all this information, just need all these encyclopedias and all these books and all these things. To some degree, yes, they are, but most of the time, no, because a lot of that information can be found all over the place, right? So there's other things that go into it. What I found in simple terms is in today's market, it's the people that want to stand out aren't necessarily the ones who go the deepest and have the most crazy information and like useful information. It's the person that's the most relevant. It's the person that just like really understands where someone is and their communication so deep that the person listening has no other option but to listen, but to take action, but to be like, oh my gosh, that's me, right? So that leads me into the very first hook. And this is something that I'm calling identity hook. And this is something I've been playing around with. This isn't even like, we do talk about identity in Built to Convert. We do talk about it inside of NGM as well. We talk about it a lot. Actually, identity is a huge piece when it comes to messaging. However, what we haven't talked about is how to use identity to hook people in. And when we use identity to hook people in, I mean, it could literally be as simple as just putting their identity in the title of something. So instead of it being how to create more engagement, it's how course creators can create more engagement. Instead of it being how to get your kids to stop yelling at you or yelling at you, how to get your kids to listen without you yelling at them. It's like how single dads are getting their kids to listen without having to yell. Like that would apply more to me. Like I would be more drawn into that because it's like, oh, that's exactly who I am. It feels more relevant. Therefore, I feel like it's more geared towards me. They're going to give something special to me and my situation. And so now I'm paying attention more. It's pulling in the emotion. It's pulling in who I think I am to be. It's pulling in and telling you this is going to be more geared towards you and your specific situation without actually using those words. So here's a perfect example is I could, like, let's say I'm teaching copywriting, right? And I have this course and I could say something along the lines of how any entrepreneur can write copy. Or I could say how course creators can write copy on a sales page to get it to convert every time. Like if you're the course creator and you're having trouble with your sales pages, that headline automatically plays into your identity. It hooks you in more because it's hyper relevant. But it also doesn't need to mean that we just use the identity in the title or in whatever. It means that we can talk to the identity also. And so when I look at that and I go like, okay, I want to sell this copywriting course, I could say like, finally learn copywriting. And that's what I would consider explaining. I'm explaining to you what you're going to do. You can finally learn copywriting, right? But that doesn't really pull people in. That doesn't really convert. It doesn't move people into action. And the reason why it doesn't move them into action is because unless they are already convinced they want to buy from you, it doesn't really move the needle. It doesn't really sell the emotion. However, if I played into the emotions of the identity, I might say something like, become the business owner who never has to worry about sales again. That plays more into the emotion of the identity. And I could even change the word business owner to course creator. Become the course creator who never has to worry about sales again. That's using the identity as what an identity hook would be. Is it's going to drive the action a lot more because it plays into the emotion of what that identity wants, what they desire. So when you start to look around and you start to get clear on this is the identity that I'm going after, this is the person here, what sort of emotions does this identity have? What are the concerns? What are their outcomes? What do they want? What do they want to become? And what I love about this is it's a transformation of identity using your language. So when we say like, hey, you're this course creator who puts out really good information, but is absolutely frustrated and going broke because it's not driving in the sales, and you can finally become the course creator who never has to worry about sales again because you have this AI or you have this copywriting course or you have this whatever, that plays into the emotion to move the needle more, move them into action because it plays into the emotion of what that identity wants. So there's two ways to do it is you can look at here's the identity that they are, here's the identity they're going to become. And this is actually how we developed for those of you that are our students, the Struggling Avatar and the Future-Based Hero. Like we developed these two things inside the brand. But we can play into the identity. You can use this inside of like even content. So if you're going to do a piece of content, and let's just say you're going to do the one that is like how single dads can ask their kids to do something and get them to listen the first time without having to yell, you could start that piece of content and say like, hey, today you're going to learn how to get your kids to listen to you without having to yell. As a single dad, it might be tough because you're tired. You're constantly having to provide for your family. You have to do this. You have to do this, right? And then say, but what, by the end of this video, you're finally going to become the dad that is calm, grounded, and kids are so connected with that they will listen the very first time when asked the right way. And it's like, whoa, yes, that's what I want. So you play into the identity desires, the emotions, and we're not doing it in a manipulative way, because I know sometimes people's minds will go there. You're doing it in a way of relevancy, of more effective communication. More effective communication doesn't mean manipulative. It means effective communication and adjusting your communication based on the other person. That's what and that's a hard thing to do. That is a really hard thing to do. But the next one that I want to dive into, so that's identity hooks. The next one I want to dive into is something called curiosity hooks. And I like to use a lot of curiosity hooks in like titles. So like things like 5 mistakes, or the 5 unknowns, or the most unknown, or the number 1 mistake. These are all things that you're not going to actually reveal until the next step. So it sort of raises this curiosity, like the 5 mistakes course creators make on their sales page that cost them to do this. 5 hidden mistakes single dads use when trying to get their kids to listen that doesn't actually work. Right. So it's these curiosity things. I also like to use those in titles, like I mentioned, but I also like to use them in call to actions. So usually when there's like a next step, that's when I like to use the curiosity thing. So like identity hooks are great to build that sort of like that connection and that rapport in the middle of a piece of content, or in the middle of copy, or when you're talking to someone. But the curiosity hooks I like to use in titles and call to actions, because there's a next step. Like when it's in a title, the next step is watch the content. And then when they're inside the content, then we use the identity hooks, right? So there's a next step. When I use the curiosity hooks in call to actions, it gets them to take the call to action because they want to see what that is, right? So when it's a call to action, I might say like, hey, if you've been struggling with anything in this video, don't worry. We've helped 30,000 people fix this problem, but every single person who was successful the fastest all did 3 things, and they all did the exact same 3 things. Now, I want to give you these 3 things, and the way I want to give these to you is through a link. You're going to submit your name and email address, register for this event coming up, and we're going to dive deeper into these 3 things. But the idea is like there's these people that had this thing that you have, this result that you want. They all did, every single one of them all did the same 3 things. You don't know what they are, but I do. And I'm going to reveal it when you take the next step. So it's the same concept. It raises this curiosity of like, what are the mistakes, and how do I learn them, and blah, 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 blah. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense. Okay. So curiosity hooks. The next one is what I call emotional hooks. These are going to be can be similar to identity hooks as well. So the emotional hooks is describing unwanted real life examples and how they feel. So again, these can sort of play hand in hand with identity hooks. With identity hooks, I like to play more into what it is they want to experience, or like using it who they want to become, which can be emotional. But emotional hooks are more of describing the unwanted circumstances they have, the feelings they have around those. And you're not necessarily playing into making it specific to an identity like you would with an identity hook. So an example would be, an identity hook would be something like, become the course creator who never has to worry about sales again. If I was using an emotional hook, I might say something along the lines of, it's really frustrating because you put a lot of time into like learn copywriting, and you probably read books and you've probably taken courses, and you put some things into action, but it still feels like you're not getting something, and you're not seeing something that everyone else is seeing, and it feels like you're being left behind. So I'm not talking about like what they want to become and who they could become, or an identity transformation. I'm talking about like, here is the actual real life situation of what you're experiencing and how it's making you feel. And so when we can tap into these unwanted experiences, when we can tap into the unwanted real life examples and how they feel, that's when we can put these emotional hooks into content. And so a lot of the times it works really well in the beginning of videos or beginning of webinars. It works really well when we teach. I like using when I teach also. So I'll teach something and I'll say, here's step number 2. Now you're going to learn how to do X, Y, and Z. But the reason why you need this is because you're likely feeling this and experiencing this. Right. And so I'm almost laying in like a curiosity hook and an emotional hook together. And that's the beautiful thing about all these hooks is that you can start to use them and weave them together. So I wouldn't get so caught up in, did I nail the identity hook? Did I nail the emotional hook? Sometimes they can all blend together into one big hook that drives action. Then the fourth and final one that I have is something called, the realization hook. I don't know. I'm just making it up right now. I don't have a name for it. I just know how to do it. And so this is when you start to describe the problems and the mistakes. And the idea is that when someone realizes, they come to the realization of like, oh my God, that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm experiencing. I'm making this mistake. They have this realization of this person talking about me. I'm doing that. I'm experiencing that. This is for me. That's the experience that we want them to have. Okay. So a perfect example of this, I like to use, I'll just use this example. Okay. So here's an example. Now, before I give you this example, if you're listening to this podcast with headphones on, you're about to retain 50% less information than someone who's actually listening in the car while driving. Now, I don't know why, but we've had hundreds of thousands of downloads on the podcast. And I know that to be true from all the research we've done. Okay. Now, obviously that's not true. None of that was true at all. But did you notice what happened when I said you're listening with headphones on? You probably, as soon as I described what you were doing, and then I attached something bad to it, you probably went maybe into defense mode, or, oh my God, he's talking about me, or, oh, how do I fix this? There was some sort of automatic reaction that happened. And that's what I want you guys to understand is that when I accurately and specifically described what you were doing, your attention went up. But if you were the person who was listening in the car, you're probably like, yeah, I'm doing something good. Like the point is, no matter what the reaction was, is that it was automatic and you automatically did it. You didn't think about it. It drove you into action. It made you more alert. Maybe you thought good things or bad things, but the point is there was this automation that started happening the second I started to describe you. And that's what realization is. That's what realization hooks are, is when you can specifically and accurately describe a problem, say, here's a problem. And the most common reason for this to happen is because people are doing this, and that person is experiencing that thing and they're doing that thing. Now they're like, holy cow, I need to fix this. I want to fix this. You're the demand to want to fix it goes through the roof. So when we start to combine identity hooks, curiosity hooks, emotional hooks, realization hooks, you nail these things. You do it inside of content. You do it inside of ads. You do it in webinars. What it does is it allows you to connect more to your audience. It makes you more relevant. It causes them to take these automatic actions that are more in favor of what you actually want. Clicks, shares, downloads, opt-ins, purchases, show up lives, staying, watching more, all that stuff, right? But what it also does too, by default, is that it eats up time on the piece of content, whether it's a podcast or a webinar or whatever it may be, that eats up time that you probably would have used over teaching, that you probably would have used delivering too much information, that you probably would have used rambling and telling your story, right? And those are other things we want to do too. You do want to tell your story. We don't need big, long 5-minute explanations that have nothing to do with what you're teaching on in the form of a story. It doesn't make any sense. So now I'm getting off a tangent, going into another pet peeve here. So I don't want to do that. But those are the hooks: identity hooks, curiosity hooks, emotional hooks, realization hooks. Start using them. Let me know how they go. Now, if you want to start creating content that creates more demand, that you want, that drives people into action, what I actually did is put together a mini course called Content That Converts. And it's my top 5 favorite pieces of content that actually use all 4 of these hooks inside of them to drive more action, to drive more results, move your audience into action, to get them to DM you and all of this stuff. And we have it at like a super, super, super low price. So all you need to do is go to brandonlucero.com/demand, and you can grab that right now. It's under $100. It's like, you guys are going to be surprised. Okay. It's probably even underneath $50. Just go check it out. It might even be less than you think. BrandonLucero.com/demand. BrandonLucero.com/demand to go grab that right now. Now, I will say if you are a Built to Convert or NGM member, you don't need this. You guys already have it. But if you aren't in our signature program yet, you might want to go grab that. Top 5 pieces of content. We'll show you how to structure them. And go grab that now, BrandonLucero.com/demand. And I will see you guys next week on another episode when we are actually going to continue this conversation, when I'm going to teach you where to start using these inside of your business to drive more results. Okay. So next week we'll talk about that, and I'll see you guys soon. Peace.
Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, go below, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you click on that bell icon and get notified every time we drop a new episode. Now, if you're looking for the show notes, we have them linked underneath this video, as well as our social media handles and some links to free training and offers that we drop from time to time to help you guys even further. So go check those out if you're interested, and thank you so much for tuning in to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.